if you follow what I do, most of you know how angry I get at our mainstream media. There's a growing chorus of us. I've been out there for a while because they are failing us. They are failing in their role in democracy. They think they're supposed to be umpires. They think they're supposed to call balls and strikes. They think that half the world's chocolate and half the world's vanilla. That's if you want fascism, sure, because it means one side can do anything they want. One side can commit genocide. The other side can get a parking ticket. And they'll sit there and say, well, you see, both sides have committed crimes. The New York Times has been the worst of this. They obviously went way out of their way to attack Hillary Clinton for her emails, which largely probably, in addition to the help from Putin and everything else, cost her the 2016 election, has gravely harmed our democracy. Put us in a position where we may not have a democracy in the future. I do believe that as much can be laid at the feet of the New York Times as Donald Trump and certain other figures, because once they splashed over their front page the email investigation and Comey's idiot statements that he should have never made, a lot of people were given a permission structure who didn't like either candidate to go and vote for Donald Trump. So thought, Hillary's more corrupt. Laughable now, right? With the counterintelligence services going to Mar-a-Lago and investigating, and Trump taking the Fifth Amendment today. And, I don't need to go through all his crimes. You know them all. But sometimes you need to go through a story by some of their bigger morons and really just pick it apart. And Marcy Wheeler, who's been a longtime friend, we visited the Creation Museum together. We got pictures of dinosaurs that were on the earth in the 18th century. Guys, you'd love it. Marcy and I had a blast. And I wrote about it for Esquire. I'll try to put that piece up maybe in the community section at some point. But she really did us a service. She broke down the New York Times piece. The Wall Street Journal did a better job covering the raid at Mar-a-Lago in an honest and straightforward way than the New York Times. I'll say this again, unsubscribe from the New York Times. It's utter trash. They don't deserve your patronage. The Washington Post is far from perfect, but it does much better. The LA Times does even better. Daily Beast, plenty of other publications like that you can read. I've written for Daily Beast, just full disclosure, but there's plenty of publications you can read. The New York Times is utter garbage, and they've said out loud that they think that they're not supposed to be activists, which in their language means they're not supposed to actually tell us the truth. See, that's what objective journalism does. If one side's wrong 98% of the time, the other side's wrong 2% of the time, that's how you report it. It doesn't matter what party they're in. But the New York Times can't handle that. They have to pretend that everybody's 50-50 right until one side becomes so authoritarian that we no longer can stop them. And the interesting thing is, of course, no insight into history, no insight into becoming enemies of the people, as they've been called, because you know who ends up on the first cattle cars along with minorities? Yeah, it's members of the free press, but we'll talk about that some other time. So Maggie Haberman covers this, and I'm going to quote from Marcy because she does this brilliantly. Let's look at the New York Times version of a story Wall Street Journal and Washington Post had first. The New York Times wasn't even there first. They just came late and did a stupid story. Maggie's the first byline. Before any news, Maggie tells you what to think, using a word that the Trumpsters talk about civil war, which is ill-considered. Right, so, quote, the search carried out Monday by the FBI at former President Donald Trump's Florida home, a law enforcement action with explosive legal and political implications, so they're giving you their characterization, was a culmination of a lengthy conflict between a president proud of his disdain for rules and officials charged with protecting the nation's records and secrets. Both sides, right? Equal sides. There was a raid on Donald Trump's house to carry out a warrant because Donald Trump has been alleged to have illegally stolen documents that are in our national security interest. What Donald Trump thinks doesn't matter, but it does to them. Okay. The next two paragraphs, let's see, again, before any news, tell you there are two sides. Here's just the perfection of this. On the one side are officials from the National Archives, which is responsible for making sure all presidential records are preserved according to the law, and the Justice Department. In other words, on one side were the people that follow the law, that believe in the law, that everyone else has adhered to when they've left the presidency. On the other side was Mr. Trump, who's in apparent contravention of the Presidential Records Act, had taken a trove of materials with him to Mar-a-Lago when he left the White House. He's just the other side here. He's not the alleged criminal who stole documents. He's not the person that did something no one else has ever done before. He's just the other side. Maggie sure has it right. The fourth paragraph makes a false claim that has been out in public view, that this has been out of public view. Of course, it was in public view what was occurring. We knew beforehand it's been reported that Trump had taken these documents down there. So again, the New York Times gets it wrong. The fifth paragraph, and as Margie, as our good friend, just call her Emptywheel. Apparently I'm having trouble saying her name, puts it, before any news comes along, again, they tell us Trump aides and allies intensified their criticism of the search on Tuesday, calling it unnecessary and asserting without citing any evidence. In other words, they got to give their BS version of the story before they actually told us what happened. That was put ahead of it. We gave them the right to deny anything and preemptively say that they didn't do anything wrong before Maggie Haberman and the other idiots in the New York Times give you the actual news. Let's see. Here's a paragraph where the New York Times could write, if Trump wanted transparency, he could release the warrant, which we've all been demanding for the last 24 hours. He says, oh, it was fraudulent, it was this or that. Release the warrant. He has the warrant. New York Times, if they weren't trying to be this and that, whatever it would say, would tell the story. They'd say the raid was made on his head, because of the search warrant on Mar-a-Lago. It was because he's stolen these documents allegedly. And if yet he claims that it was an illegal raid and there was no basis for it. And they could say right there, and he could release the warrant. If Mr. Trump wanted to show this to be true, he could, and show that a federal judge was wrong and show that the FBI were wrong, he could release the warrant. Nowhere does that appear, of course, because that would be New York Times being too honest. They, of course, admit that the New York Times, that Biden did not know that this was happening. He did not get a heads up in advance, and they don't even quote his spokesperson, Karine Jean-Pierre, as saying that he didn't. They just throw it out to him. Some press person said, as opposed to somebody with authority, the press secretary. The New York Times presents evidence that Trump lied, but they don't say Trump lied because they can't bring themselves to say that. That wouldn't be both sides, because Maggie vomited up that press release like she was sucking mother's milk, unquestioningly. Well put, Emptywheel. Trump suggested an army of agents raided Mar-a-Lago, stormed through his home. The FBI conducted a search that day when he was out of town at the club, probably burying somebody else next to his wife so he can get another tax break. I'm not going to even go anymore with Trump's crap. This is the kind of thing you get from the New York Times. Trump gets to give his version of events before the actual news of what happened. There's no onus on Trump to provide a warrant and provide any evidence for his claim that a federal judge found reasonable grounds for this warrant, and for the fact that the FBI found reasonable grounds, the Justice Department. Trump's not required to do that. They just verbatim repeat his lie. They repeat his lie before they give you the other side of things, before they give you the news, before they give you the actual truth. And I could belabor this, but this is why one of the reasons we're in the situation we're in, because I live in Cincinnati, folks, and a lot of local newspapers, local news, they take their cues from the New York Times. The New York Times has this big, bright, shiny lights, the neon lights of Broadway, and everybody thinks if they say it, it must be true. It's how the Hillary email story went around the world and back a billion times before she could say anything about it. They're failing us. They're awful. They're failing our democracy. They're failing honesty. They're harming minorities in this country who are being hurt by white supremacists. They come and show up at these diners in Ohio that aren't representative of where I live, in an area that's probably almost as liberal as parts of New York City. But that's all of Ohio. They further create stereotypes. And by not giving people the truth, by not doing their one thing they're supposed to do in a democracy, which is educating people about their choices, about who is who and what is what, so people can make informed choices in a democracy. That's the whole theory behind this, and vote for in their best interests. They are massively failing us, and you should go by and tell them that. Hey guys, if you've liked everything that I do here, please subscribe. You can go, you can turn on notifications, and you'll know when I put up new videos. Go to at Cliff Schecter on Twitter and like and whatever else. Thanks for being here.